Gina, I was saying earlier, I have been trying to manifest this conversation for the past month or two, and I finally feel like we're here. I'm so glad you're here today. How are you?
I'm so excited for this conversation. Thank you for the invitation, and I'm thrilled to be speaking to you and your people. Hey, people.
Hey, it's funny. I was saying that I follow you on TikTok, and it took me a couple of seconds to kind of make the connection to your viral video, which is Too Much Women. And I'm telling all of our listeners, I saw it on Goldcast.
Yeah,
I think I shared it on my Facebook it was like 3 years ago, wasn't it?
it was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's been like 50 million views of this. And the story is, and that's when I started making the connection. Oh my gosh, that's her. So this story or poetry, which is beautiful, and it's telling your journey. And it's such a familiar story, but yet different. Right. I mean, I was not raised by a Greek family. I was never a dancer. I mean, except for tap dance when I was little. And this journey that you go through of really powerfully, strongly accepting yourself. But again, that journey that goes up and down, right? It's, really embracing yourself, being too much woman, and then having to dial it back because of others' influence, and then refining it and coming back out. And by the end of it, and that exhilaration of just declaring who you are and what you were going to bring out into this world, funny enough, was both that and oh gosh, that's scary.
Yeah.
Do you find that's what a lot of women feel?
Well, heck, that's what I feel. I mean, I
Mm.
think it's really important. Let's start off with truth, because truth is the pillar that I stand on. And the truth is that I have fear every single day. There is not a place that we get to where we cross the grand finish line and we reach the X marks the spot and we're like, I've arrived, y'all, I've
Yeah.
arrived. And in fact, I don't even believe that that's the desirable destination. I really don't. Because I think if we get to a place where we're not encountering what feels like fear, we'll call it fear right now, but fear is just the flip side of excitement and enthusiasm, right? If we're not dancing with that feeling on a regular basis, we're living too softly. We're treading too carefully. We're not living the fullest, highest expression of our lives. And so, number one, I dance with that daily. I think women who want to live the highest, best expression of their lives dance with that daily. I think even if we don't, we dance with that daily. So either way, we're going to encounter trepidation. We're going to encounter that feeling of, so we're either going to do that in the light of living our highest, best purpose, or we're going to do that in a box. And I want to
Mm.
encourage women and men, all of us, to dance intentionally with that fear.
So, I mean, let's discuss this a little bit. As you have said before, that beauty being an inside job, which, again, we talk about on Beauty Uncovered, about really matching how beautiful we are on the inside with on the outside. But, kind of what we were saying is that, sometimes we're either not feeling it or we're afraid to bring that out. So I want to talk a little bit about why women are conflicted. Like, what do you think is the root cause of the lack of self-confidence in our own ownership of our bodies and of our looks?
100% self-trust.
Explain.
Self-trust. Yeah. Oh, I'd be happy to. Hold me back. Self-trust is to confidence what peanut butter is to jelly. Now, I use a lot of food metaphors because food is life, but they go hand in hand with one another. And the degree to which we have confidence and we're able to step into fear or what makes us uncomfortable is mirrored exactly by the degree to which we trust ourselves. Now, let's take this back for a moment and let's consider that we are socialized, particularly as women, not to trust ourselves.
Right.
So think about as children, it's like, don't cry. Why are you so upset? You're overreacting. What a drama queen. You shouldn't feel that way. cover yourself up. That's not right. And so we are consistently groomed to not trust our feelings, our thoughts, our desires, our bodies. And so as we grow up and out into the world, we are systemized to check ourselves, to get stuck in this hamster wheel of analysis paralysis about everything, about love, about what we say, about how to show up at work, how we should speak up at work, what we should say in the dating game, what we should wear. Is this too much? Am I revealing too? Oh, let me just pull this up and let's get it. It's a little bit like we're just constantly second guessing ourselves because we don't inherently trust ourselves. So that's maybe the bad news, but here's the good news, because I always want to.
I was going to say, well, yeah, no, it resonates though. It resonates.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's not even, I mean, yes, we have all the foundational stuff from when we're growing up. You know, I like to believe that our parents and our teachers and whatnot were trying to protect us from this world, but in a real way, it kind of held us back. But even in today's society, as we're grown ass adults, it still happens. Everybody's got opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 90 to 95% of our life is run by those unconscious tracks that were laid in our childhood. There's no denying that. And so when we recognize that, we might say consciously, like you and I might say, I want to be a badass woman. I'm going to wear what I want and do what I want and say what I want. And I'm going to feel beautiful. And I'm going to go in and get my hair done and my lashes done. I'm going to feel like $1,000,000. And then in that moment, we're very intentional and excited about that. And then what happens is we might post something on social media, or we go to a party and we get a look, or we get a feeling, or we second guess ourselves. How many of you watching have gotten yourself all gussied up? You feel like $1,000,000, and then you have that one moment where you look in the mirror right before you go and you're like, hold on, I don't know, hold on. And we creep back into the closet and we start to just think about it. And we do this with every area of our lives simply because we don't trust ourselves. And I think it's really important. I just want to say this. It's really important to define self-trust, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding. Self-trust doesn't mean I'm going to put on whatever I want. I'm going to go out and I'm going to kill it. It doesn't mean, I'm going to write the book. It's going to become a bestseller. I'm going to find the perfect relationship and I'm going to live happily ever after. That's not self-trust. Self-trust is the assured reliance that no matter what happens, I will take care of me. I will back number one. I've got my own back. I will do what I need to do to take care of, protect, and honor me. And that's a really important distinction when we're talking about a woman showing up in her body.
I would imagine that also applies of not allowing other things to fuel your ego or your self-esteem. It's about allowing yourself to be the fuel. That's a really hard one to reconcile because we are so susceptible to other people's opinions.
Yeah, we really are. And you know what? I think I've really come to a place, because for so long I used to preach, your power comes from within you and love yourself first. And I think all of those points are really valid. But where I've come in the past year and a half is I've really started to recognize how important it is not to resist or make wrong our need for external validation, appreciation, and acknowledgement. It's part of our biological wiring. I mean, there's an absolutely, we have this really horrific, very toxic term, thirst trap. Like a woman is demonized for showing up and feeling confident. It's like society's like, hey girl, be confident. And then it's like, no, not like that. Too far. Like, don't love yourself too much. Love yourself, but whoa, no, not that. That's too far. And so we're really like stuck between a rock and a hard place. So it's really important for us to understand and not resist and not make wrong and not shame or have guilt around the fact that we want to be acknowledged. I mean, if I got all gussied up and, my man doesn't say, whoa, babe, that doesn't make me wrong for wanting that. I think it's normal and healthy. However, if we don't have a root system that is deeply entrenched in our own self-appreciation and self-acceptance, then, everything else is going to impact us so much more. Does that make sense?
No, it makes complete sense. But I guess my next question in all this, because it sounds good to me. It sounds good to me. I think it sounds great. And it's definitely a journey that I have been going through for, quite a few years. So I understand it. But even with understanding, it's kind of like, okay, where do I go from here? You know, what steps do I take? Because
Yeah.
it is so foreign to a lot of people, this concept. More than I even care to admit, because I talk to friends and we talk about it and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. Or how do I even start to do that? It seems
Yeah.
overwhelming.
Yeah. And this is where I get really excited and I jump up and down. And I know you can't see it, but I'm jumping up and down inside because this is why I do what I do. This is why I have established the movement, because everybody tells us to love ourselves. Nobody tells us how. You
How?
know, nobody
How?
tells us how. It's not, it's like, look in the mirror, say your affirmations, I'm beautiful and beautiful. I mean, it's not landing, right? That's not, and so,
Because a lot of times I think we're going through the motion. We're going through the motions, kind of like you said, we get our hair done, we get our nails done, we feel powerful
yeah,
in that.
right.
We wear what we want, but in the meantime, inside, we're still deeply affected by all these
Deeply.
undercurrents.
Deeply, deeply. And that's why it's really important to do our work and to have self-awareness and do the deep, like I said, I love the imagery of a tree, right? A tree that stands really tall and it presents, like think about in the spring, the tree's blooming and blossoming and people are like, ooh, look at those cherry blossoms. I mean, oh, so, and they sit under the tree and they get shade from the tree, or maybe they pick the fruit of your tree, or they climb your tree and they're enjoying the view from the tree. But here's the thing, that's wonderful, and it is wonderful, and we love it, and we all want it. However, underneath the ground is the root system, and the root system is your responsibility. The root system actually is where your power comes from, so that no matter what happens above ground, the wind, the hurricane, people come, they carve on your trunk or break your branches, your root system is going to be solid, and that's your self-trust. And so we can talk about how we start to build that, but it's
I would love
really
to.
going beyond.
I
Yeah.
I would say what is like top level, one of the things that you would first tell somebody that's really, they listen to this and they go, okay, this speaks to me, but where do I
Yeah.
start?
Oh, like my mind's like, oh, there's so many places. Okay, I'm going to go with my intuitive gut. The first thing that comes up, because the root system is self-trust. It's the alpha and the omega. It's the beginning and the end. And so I teach a whole program on how to build your self-trust. But I'm going to give you one pillar. I'm just going to give you one. And this might seem simple, but I really want you to consider this. Start by acknowledging or committing to choosing truth over goodness. Truth over goodness. We're socialized, particularly as women, to be good, to be acceptable, to be affirmed, to be loving. We're the nurturers, we're the caregivers. We want to be seen as acceptable and loved. And what happens is we prioritize that over truth. And truth is how we feel, what we want. If you're a people pleaser, if you're a rescuer in
Mm.
relationship, if you're one of those people who prioritize other people and you call yourself a lover, or better yet, a giver, I'm a giver. I'm a giver. I have a really hard time taking or receiving. It sounds like it comes from a really beautiful, loving place, but all of those spaces are void of emotional availability, right? Because what we're actually doing is we're bulldozering our needs and prioritizing other people's needs. Are they happy? Are they good? Are they okay? And so really start to take a look at, even just practically daily, where am I prioritizing other people's feelings or looking good over what's true for me? How does that show up at work with your boss, with your colleagues, with your clients? How is that showing up with your partner, in the bedroom? How is that showing up in your relationship? Yeah, sure, let's do that, instead of actually really speaking your truth. How is that showing up in conversation with your mom, right? Like, how is that showing up with your kids? How is that showing up with what you post online? Are you looking for ways that people are going to like and accept and affirm and agree with you, or are you actually speaking your truth? And it's not as abstract as we think when we actually can sit and journal and look at, where am I prioritizing goodness over truth?
No, I completely understand this. And I definitely was raised to be the good girl, raised to be the good girl, make sure that everybody was taken care of, make sure everybody is being supported and everything like that. And I still have, in essence, some of that in me, but I definitely have become a little bit more outspoken about my needs. But what it's fascinating is I see some of my girlfriends and they are literally the givers to the point where they've taken careers like nursing, not saying that I mean, I think it's brilliant, but to the point where they're giving to themselves, giving out of themselves so extraordinarily, and not ever really creating, I guess, boundaries, isn't it? I mean, it's boundaries.
Yeah.
So there's a fear attached to that, isn't there? That you won't be liked. Like, how do you get past that?
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah. I mean, understand. Well, first of all, I think what's really important is that we know what we need. I mean, it's one thing to say, have a boundary and be really clear about what you need, and extend that to someone and say, this is really important to me. This is what I need in a relationship. This is how I need you to speak to me. However, the precursor to that people often gloss over is, I think many of us don't know what we need. We don't know what we want. We really, really don't. And the reason that this is evident to me after working with thousands of women, and truly globally, like I've literally toured the world, and the same issue comes up time and again, is because when we do the deep work, getting curious about what we need, what we find is that the knee-jerk response is actually what people told us we needed. Okay, I need this kind of person, this kind of life, this kind of body, this kind of career. I need something that's reliable. I need security. I told myself my whole life that the most important thing is safety and security, and that would be my priority. And so I teach a values assessment. Like, if the degree to which you're living truly by your values is the degree to which you're happy. Full stop, period, line in the sand. The problem is most of us aren't living according to our own personal value. We say we are. We say, if I were to ask you, what are your top 3 values? You might say, family, health, and kindness. I don't know. And then if we were to do a little bit of digging work, we may find that that's actually not truly your top 3 values. Maybe your top value is freedom. Maybe your top value is courage. And when we live out of alignment with that, we're actually living a facade, and we will never be happy or fulfilled. And the reason this is such an important point is when we go back to self-trust, if we're living out of alignment with what our values are, we're breaking our own hearts every single day. We're breaking our trust with ourselves every single day. And that breaks our self-confidence, and it's harder to show up in the world in the powerful way we want to. So that's the root system.
It's so interesting. I found a speaker, and unfortunately I don't remember his name, but he was kind of theorizing about some of the things that women prioritize, whether it be with work, with relationships, with anything, and that they prioritize security first. If they feel as though that job does not make them feel secure, they leave. If that relationship does not make them feel secure, they leave. It's very interesting that you brought it up.
Or they leave, or let me just add
or they try to create an illusion of security.
Yes, so they leave, or they're triggered by that, and that's where we start talking about being anxious attached. So we overgive. That's why we overgive, right? That's why we're people pleasers, because what we're actually doing, it's not. Listen, sweethearts who are listening, I say this with the most love in my heart because I'm speaking to myself as well. But when we overgive, when we overlove, when we are people pleasers, when we're so caring, so uber nurturing, where we don't have a boundary there, it's not because we're such good loving people. You may be a good loving person, but that's not why. The reason that we do that is because unconsciously we are trying to get that very thing from the other person. So we say to ourselves, if I give more, I'm going to get it back. If I rescue them, maybe they'll rescue me back. If I save them, maybe they'll take care of me. Now, consciously, we're like, no, I love him. I care about him. Girl, hold on for a second, because truly we are seeking security by hooking in. We think to ourselves, if I love them enough, if I'm good enough to them, they're going to be dependent on me and they will stay. They will give it back to me. And that comes from a lack of safety and security.
Wow. No, that's deep, man.
Yeah, I didn't mean to go that deep, but this is the reason this is important is because you asked the very pointed question. The question is, how do we show up most confidently? How do we, face our fear? And it comes to the root system, and the root system is self-trust. And we don't trust ourselves because we're always breaking our own heart. So there's a very direct place that we can go to to work on that and strengthen that. And I this is what excites me. This is what lights me up.
It's funny. I had another question written down here, and in a weird way, I think you've already answered it, but I'm going to say it anyways because it is a
Okay.
little more direct.
Okay.
And it is basically, we do have a lot of people with opinions, or people who casually marginalize us, right? You know, how do we let go of that? But in many ways, your answer is that inner work kind of softens it, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I don't even know that that's so bad. You know, in my public space, there are people have a lot of opinions. And here's the thing: if you don't want people to have an opinion about you, you got to live under the radar. So if you're going to speak up and have an opinion or be seen in any way and take a stand in any way, people are going to have opinions. And so it's going to happen. So I think your question is, how do we manage that? And for me, I get very, very clear on, first of all, my root system. So it always starts there. I'm really secure in what I believe is true for me, what I know to be true for me. So the roots are deep. My roots are strong. And I work on that every day. I work on it every day. But secondary to that, I'm very curious when there's criticism about it, because I think it's very important to be open. I don't know everything. I change my mind all the time. And so I'm very open to listening. And then I qualify where the criticism is coming from. You know, is it coming from someone who is getting triggered by, you know, what I'm saying because they have their own stuff? Or is it someone who's really has a thoughtful question, and then maybe I'll respond to it? And so again, the deeper my roots are, the more I'm able to discern the quality of the criticism. And sometimes it's there's an element of truth, and I've got to look at that. You know, I get triggered too. And I think that helps me grow. I don't even think it's a bad thing. Really, it was uncomfortable. It's like, ugh. But my highest value is growth and courage, right? Like, so I ultimately, although it's uncomfortable, I want to grow. I don't want to be in the same mindset 5 years ago that I will be in 10 years from now. So my perspective on it is different. I'm not resistant to the criticism as much as I used to be.
Do you think perhaps that's because you've become a stronger person?
Yeah, it's because I trust myself.
Yeah.
It's
Because I was
because
going to
trust
say,
myself.
growing up, my mom used to always say, you know, well, she didn't, I was going to say, she'd say, you know, their opinion says more about them than it does you. But no, what she likes to say, every time you point a finger, 4 fingers are pointing at you, you know.
I mean, it's very true. And I think also it's very, we have to, again, I want to challenge the narrative, because it's very easy to say, don't listen. You know, here's can I swear in here? I got to be really careful. I'm going to try not to swear. It's very trendy to say, I don't give up, right? And about what people say. I don't give up. I don't give up. It's very trendy. But the truth is, we do. We only psychopaths don't actually care what anybody says about them. Like really, there's an element we're biologically wired to care. So that's number one. So there's some avoidance and some repression there. But number two, if you truly don't care whatsoever, there's also a narcissistic tendency there, because what we're saying is, I know this and I'm not willing to listen to anything else. And that's actually a very closed-minded perspective. And so what I try to do, and I'm not perfect, I feel all the time, but what I try to do is, when the criticism comes my way, in the moment, I have to just pin it, because emotionally we react. And then I sit with it and I really get curious. Who's it coming from? What's their incentive? Am I triggered because there's a wound under there that maybe is a little bit true, or maybe reminds me of, something? Or so I'm open. I'm open. And I think if we're not open, that's really dangerous too. So there's a beautiful little balance there.
So let's talk a little bit about that correlation between that inner beauty and really finding yourself, and then what goes on the outside. Because we kind of talked about the juxtaposition of it. Yes, there are people that don't have the actionable tools or whatever, to manifest it from the outside, and we're trying to help them find that pathway that's right for them. Right. But then there's also the people that you were saying that, like, they do everything, they do all these different things to them on the outwardly, and they still need to work on the inside.
Yeah.
So it's almost like 2 different classifications to look at, right? Like, cause I definitely fell under the first one when I was younger. I was long hair, very hidden, big baggy clothing, didn't want anybody to see my body, didn't wear makeup. And it wasn't until I got older where I was like, no, I'm allowed to express myself the way I want to. What what would you be the advice of a person that's trying to because again, we get very caught up of what's around us, people's opinions of us. I had a very radical transformation, and I left the state to be able to do it. So I could just be myself, right? But what is something that would help someone not be hindered by what's going on around them?
Yeah.
Well-meaning friends and family.
Yeah, right. Um, Aside from what we've talked about in terms of self-trust, it's really interesting because in my movement, it's called the Too Much Woman, and what it is about a woman reclaiming all parts of herself. And a lot of times women will say to me, I love what you stand for. I love the idea of embracing all the parts of me, but I don't think I can ever, look like you or color my hair that way or even wear red
Outwardly
or
express
all
themselves.
your cleavage and I don't know if I can. And here's the thing, it's not about being any of those things. It's about, again, truth. So what's true for you? So I have women in my movement who are in their 60s, 70s, 80s, whose truth for them is, like wearing eyeshadow. They haven't, like, it doesn't, you have to really get clear about what's true for you. That really is the first step, because I think so many of us, we see markers of external beauty, scroll Instagram, and we're like, okay, that's the goal. I need to achieve that. But we're missing the mark, because trying to be anything outside of what feels true for us is just wearing another mask. So if I'm wearing one mask that's hiding, and then I'm going to try to look like, and emulate someone else's external beauty, I'm just wearing another mask. So getting really clear about what does that mean for you? Like, do what is your style? What is the external representation of you? For some people, it's being tatted from head to toe. For some people, it's shaving their heads. For some people, it's, more of a hippie, long hair, where, no makeup whatsoever. So it begins with knowing what's true for you. And the more a woman can get clear about it, accept it, and then trust that part, that is what becomes magnetic. And I think we can't have this conversation truly without talking about magnetism, because magnetism is what's beautiful. People say, confidence is sexy. What they're really saying is, confidence is self-trust. Remember, they're the same thing. When a woman is rooted deeply in a sense of herself and her knowing, it's magnetic. You can't help but want to stare at her and look at her and be around her. I have a community of women that are straight women that tell me all the time, I'm just so magnetically attracted to your energy. And it's not sexual, it's because there's a part of them that is being called forth that wants to feel that way too.
I love that concept. And I was going to say, I can definitely see there's times that I'm at a party, there's times that I'm at any kind of event, a restaurant, and, there is the conventional, beauty, the people that, you see on magazines and whatnot. And then there is that unconventional person, that is not doing anything that's to society standards. And you're just like, completely drawn in because they have this energy about them. Yeah. I'm kind of assuming this is what you're speaking of.
Yeah, I'm totally speaking about that. And conversely, there are a lot of truly beautiful women. And I don't know, because I've had the great opportunity to be on tour and to travel and meet so many gorgeous women, and work with them, I will meet them and I will think, whoa, like she takes my breath away. And then we start to work together, and it is under the shell of that beauty is a tiny little girl who doesn't love herself, who feels unworthy, who can't be in a stable relationship, who doesn't feel like, she can accept love, so, we can have all the markers of success, but I see it time and again, powerful women who excel in their businesses even, and they're beautiful, powerful, but bring them behind closed doors in a relationship and they act like 4-year-old kids whose blankie's been stolen. And this isn't to be
Mm,
patronizing. It's because the root system isn't secure and strong. So we could have all these magic potions and look really, that works for a while. But when people are in your energy, they will feel either a relaxation because they feel that you're at peace with yourself, or they're going to feel tense because you're constantly, like, you're just uncomfortable in your body. And I
mm.
think there's a huge difference there. And everybody watching, I know you know what I'm talking about.
Oh God, yeah, no, definitely. In fact, I try not to fidget so much.
Yeah.
Uh, but I would like to touch a little bit about your touring and where our listeners can find you and all the different great platforms. I know that on Facebook, you have a daily blog that you go on there with. I love your writing. Just a
Thank you.
beautiful poet.
Thank you.
It's just absolutely stunning. So I definitely encourage everybody to go and look for Gina on there. You also have a YouTube channel as well.
I do have a YouTube. So Instagram and Facebook is where I post my blogs because there's the space for them. And so that's a great place to go if you're looking for daily inspiration. I also have my Facebook groups, where I'll be sharing a lot of the new programs that I'm launching this summer. TikTok is a really fun place if you're looking for just little tidbits of ideas on what to do. So I have a lot of fun with that.
It's
And
like a little energy boost.
yeah, that's what
It
it is.
might, it's like the content sometimes it's just one of those, it's like getting a little bite of a little chocolate. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're like,
That's
oh,
it.
that's good.
I love being compared to a little bite of chocolate. Thank you.
It's good. It's enjoyable. Maybe I'll go back for more.
Yeah, yeah. Addictive, I hope.
But you're speaking of a tour. What's going on?
Yeah, so I've been on tour pre-pandemic. I was on tour across North America, and so predominantly Canada and the US. And we hit Brazil, and we were in Prague and Paris just before the pandemic hit. And we were
Wow.
going across Europe. So now we're looking at going back on tour. So yeah, if you follow me anywhere, I'll be posting because now my team and I are starting to look, now that the world is starting to open up, looking at going back out there. So the Too Much Woman tour, just look anywhere, Gina Too Much Woman, Google me, and you'll find me, and I'll keep you posted. So I would love to meet you guys.
I'll definitely be Googling, and I hope you come down to Florida. We'll come by and say hello.
Great.
And thank you very much for coming on. And I really hope that, well, I know that a lot of our listeners are right now sitting there going, let me start working on some stuff, because I do think that is such an important part of this whole beauty conversation, is making sure, yeah, we're uncovering it.
Yeah.
And
If anybody's looking, and I will throw this out, one of the great things of the pandemic is I was able to create a weekly class, a master class that I teach. Prior to the pandemic, when I was touring and speaking, that was unavailable to me because of my schedule. So for the past 8 months, every Monday, it's called Mojo Masterclass. You can just message me anywhere, but I'm on Patreon, and it's called Mojo Masterclass. It literally is the best way to access my content if you're ready to do some of the work. It's a small group. I teach a masterclass, and then I do small group coaching. It's every Monday. It's a monthly membership for probably the most ridiculously affordable thing, less than like a fast food meal a month. And that's actually the reason I want to share that, is because it's only for people. It's only for women who are ready to do some of the work in an environment where it doesn't feel scary. I think saying, "Oh God, I got to do the work," feels like overwhelming. And so we have some
also
fun
intimidating. It's
and
intimidating when other
intimidating.
people are there and you're like, they're
Yes.
looking at me. Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah. So this is a really different space. It's a beautiful energy, and I welcome you at least to try it. DM me for a free pass and come give it a shot.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. I
My
appreciate
pleasure.
that.
My pleasure.